Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Empowered Mama Summit. My name is Dr. Ksenia Gershberg, and I'm super excited to have you here today. And today I'm with Dr. Alexandra Stockwell. I'm so excited to have you here today, and we're going to be discussing reconnecting sensually. Dr. Stockwell is the best-selling author of Uncompromising Intimacy. Alexandra Stockwell MD is a relationship and intimacy expert who shows couples how to build beautiful, stable, long-lasting relationships. A wife of 24 years, a mother of 4, Alexandra helps men and women infuse pleasure and purpose into all aspects of life, from the daily grind of running a household to clear, intimate communication to ecstatic experiences in the bedroom. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Me too. I always love our contacts and our conversations, and I enjoy sharing them with anyone who's watching.
So today we're going to be talking about reconnecting sensually. What advice do you have for families who are trying to create a balance, and how can they prioritize their relationship and still attend to their child's needs?
You know, I think that one of the real challenges that especially faces mothers, but it faces fathers too, is that in our culture, we're rewarded for and expected to take care of our children. And obviously that's super important. I'm not going to say anything different from that, but we're not given the same positive feedback, approval, and societal messaging around really nurturing our relationship and our own fulfillment in the relationship. And so one of the natural consequences of that is that actually, this is a fun thing to do since we're on Facebook here. If you look at people's about the description of them, it's very, very common, definitely the majority, that will write mother, wife, and then, you know, whatever their career is. And it's unusual that someone will write wife, mother, and then the other things. And it's actually understandable in our culture. Someone like, I will always be my children's mother. There's absolutely nothing that's going to ever shift that. And technically, I might not always be my husband's wife. Now, I have zero plans of getting divorced. I actually do expect to be his wife for the rest of my life. But that's just not as certain as the fact that I will always be my children's mother. And anyway, we can philosophize about the societal context, but the fact is that once children are born, most mothers particularly prioritize taking care of their children's needs over really tending the marital relationship. And another aspect of this is that our children need us. Like, they can't feed themselves until they're teenagers, and then they don't necessarily want to. Then, you know, we are really they depend on us. That's normal and natural. And our husband, wife, whatever, our partner doesn't actually depend on us to be able to survive, thrive, and get through the day. So what I really want to emphasize is that it's totally understandable that as parents, we tend to prioritize the relationship with the children and put the relationship with our partner kind of to varying degrees on the back burner. And it can mean that it's only once the children are in bed that we really have some time for our partner, and often we're too exhausted to actually do that. So that's the context, which is probably familiar to anybody listening. If it's not, that's amazing. And what I really want to say is that that's backwards, even for our children's sake. In fact, when I was thinking about how I would serve people and my devotion to families and children, for a little while I thought about going into parenting, because I used to teach, I used to give a lot of lectures for parents and just do a lot in that arena. And I opted to go into relationship and intimacy because I believe the very best thing that I can do for children is to teach their parents how to have really awesome relationships. that are fulfilling sensually, sexually, emotionally, intellectually, in every which way. And so I want to say why that is. First of all, if you just look at the children's well-being, they will have much better lives if they have role models in their parents, or maybe a parent and a step parent, whatever the case, if they have a great relationship. It's one of them. Yes, you need to give your children food and change diapers, but it would be an amazing world if every parent took just as seriously to figure out how to be the best role model in relationships for our children. That really contributes to our children's well-being and long-term success. So this is worthwhile for our children, and I emphasize that because putting attention on your relationship can feel like pulling attention away from your children. But I want to encourage everyone listening to really look at it as another way of nurturing our children, even if in the short term it can feel like pulling attention away. And of course, there are many great reasons to really put attention on our relationship, on our marriage, because it feels good and it's more fun, and like it feels better to be in a great marriage than not. So
You don't want to wait until the kids are in college, right?
it rarely works that way. There's too much baggage. And actually, this data can, even though I've shared it for quite a while, it still boggles my mind that 24% of couples who are together are staying together for the sake of the children and intend to split when the children are out of the house. Well, that is a terrible way to live. If your children, when you decide that your youngest child is, a senior in high school and leaving home in 4 months, okay, fine. But if your youngest child is 6, 8, 14, that is just a long way to live with disconnection. And it feels terrible to experience it. It's terrible for your partner. And it is an unconscious and highly impactful legacy left to the children. So even though your question was about balance between tending your relationship and tending your children, what I really want to say is that being a good mother, in my mind, being a good father, includes prioritizing the marital relationship. And I don't actually care if people are married, but I mean that the relationship with the other adult, where there's romance, the other person who's living in the house. And actually, there's so many different family configurations. I know of a beautiful family where it's actually 2 sisters who are raising children together. So what I'm saying is definitely true when it involves sensuality and romance and erotic energy, but it's true for any 2 adults, or 3, or in the Bay Area, who knows what the configuration is, but that the adults really prioritize nurturing the adult relationships with one another for the sake of the adults and for the sake of the children.
It's so important. And, us moms usually put that on the back burner. And I'm really happy that you're putting that out there. And so more families can see that the importance of it. How can couples deepen their connection?
No matter where you are in your relationship, and this is true, honestly, even if you're separated from your children's other parent, but certainly if you're living with the person and married to them, I think it's such a simple step to deepen connection, but it's often overlooked. And that is to start with curiosity and interest. And it's so simple, but so impactful, because really the feeling of being in love and really being connected with another person, it involves being curious and asking questions. What are you daydreaming about? And how did you celebrate your 6th birthday? And all kinds of questions are what have us feel like we can just really be with one another at the beginning of a relationship. And then life happens, there's so many other things to take care of, and we stop asking one another questions. And just to be really clear, I'm not talking about questions like, did you take the trash out? And, did you make lunches for tomorrow? I'm talking about open-ended questions that are really about experiences of the soul. And in fact, the average couple in the United States spends less than 4 minutes a day talking about anything besides logistics and kids. And the way to expand that to 10, 15 minutes is to ask questions. In fact, my husband and I, we don't have very much time together right now. He's a physician, and so he's working, and I'm working and tending my children. And, it's just not a time for a lot of putting our feet up and hanging out, even though, yes, we're home. And for people, I think, who have much older children, or it's just the adults at home, this can feel like a very expansive, peaceful time. But for those of us with kids, this is, much busier, even if we're not leaving home.
Definitely.
But we make a point of spending sometimes just 10 or 15 minutes sitting together and asking questions, hearing about one another's day, or laughing at something we did together 12 years ago. And the difference between whether we just do that for a short amount of time or we don't is massive in terms of how connected and collaborative we feel. When we just, it's not really a check-in, because check-in sounds a lot more practical and logistical. I'm really talking about taking a breath and saying, how are you today? And just those questions have us feel like we are on the same team, even though we're doing different things, and a lot of them all day long.
Do you encourage couples to do that like during the day, like a phone call check-in if they're not together? How do you suggest for them to connect through that?
I really suggest couples do it any way they can. So
Okay.
if you have a more leisurely life and you can do it in the morning before you get out of bed, or over dinner and a glass of wine, go for it. If you are, one or both of you are just out of bed and it's go, 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 this one needs this one that, work, then I recommend, of course, this wouldn't apply to most people right now, but it could be while one is driving to work, the other one makes a point, in a super busy, active home where it's really hard, while one person's driving to work, the other one should just go to the bathroom with a telephone. And just doing that will shift things. In fact, I had a couple, they were so busy and they didn't connect, and she really felt the burden of the disconnection. And she's like, I don't think he's really going to go for open-ended questions. And I said, well, the point is not to judge the answers. With open-ended questions, the point is to really open and just be a yes to the fact that your partner's sharing with you. Even if you don't like what they're saying, that's secondary. What's more important is that the two of you feel the connection that comes with one of you listening and the other sharing. And when she told him, we're not going to be critiquing, it's really just about listening without judgment. He's like, okay, I'll give it a try. And they did this, and he was driving to work. This was before shelter in place. He dropped the kids off at school, was driving to work, and she had made a point of being available by phone during that time. And she was astonished how much smoother things felt, because even though he was driving down the highway and she was at home, they were turning toward one another without any agenda other than to connect, which happens in the most non-confrontational, uncomplicated way when they take turns asking open-ended questions.
I love that. And you have a lot, you discussed that a lot in your book as well. So definitely, if you're watching and you're interested to learn more about that, definitely pick up the book because it talks about that as well.
Thank
And
you.
how would you encourage more couples to have fun in their relationship?
You know, it's funny, but that's such an important question, because that is one of the first things to go, is the fun. And I actually have an exercise which I have clients do, but anyone can do it. You don't have to become a client to do it. And I'm just going to answer this question by giving the instructions. So the first thing is that both partners separately make a list of the things that are fun to do together. So it's not that I'm making a list of anything that's fun. It's the things that I really enjoy doing with my partner. And he makes a list of the things that he enjoys doing with me together. And it could be things we haven't done in 6 years. It could be things we haven't done since the kids were born. It could be things we did last week. It's just a very comprehensive list of whatever comes to mind that you enjoy doing with one another. And then you come together and share your lists, and then you make a master list of anything that's on both lists. And there might be something that my husband put on his that I just didn't think of, and so I definitely am a yes to that. Or it could be that there's something on his list that I'm not really sure, but I'd like to try it. And so you make the master list with everything that's on both lists, and then a few things that were on one list and the other one is interested to try, and see if it's fun. And put that on the refrigerator or tape that on your bedroom wall, and make a point of doing things on that list every week. And this sounds very simple. And of course, if it were for our children, we would be making the list and making it happen. But putting it on the refrigerator or on the wall somewhere where you both see it is a reminder of how much fun you can have together. And I've seen couples in kind of disconnected phases in their marriages. I often start with that exercise because it's so benign, and it's not icky, it's not hard, and it's not even vulnerable. You just put on the list the things you enjoy doing, and it reminds people to include that. And when people do those things, they start feeling more connected. Suddenly they're more affectionate, because fun is really an essential ingredient to a good relationship.
That sounds like so much fun. I think I'm going to be doing that.
And actually, while sheltering in place right now, that's something that you could do with the whole family. Like, have everybody old enough to make a list, whether or not they can write it down themselves. Like, what are the things that are fun to do as the family on our property, like in our home or in our yard. Actually, I'm just thinking of that right now, but I think I'm going to do that with my family tonight, and then have that up so that when someone's bored or someone's a little bit grumpy, like, oh, let's do one of the things that's on the list, because anything on there, we're all a yes to.
And we could just check it off and have fun, and nobody gets bored.
And it's not up to mom to figure out, or one of the partners to figure out, like, what's going to work for both of us. It just spreads the responsibility for creating fun together.
Yes, definitely. I love that. So what is the number one thing that you encourage couples to do daily?
It really depends where you're starting. So if you're in a disconnected phase, then the number one thing is to start asking questions. And I would add to that, making a point of at least once a day expressing gratitude for something in relation to your partner. There are a lot of people who have gratitude practices, but they don't necessarily include expressing gratitude for your partner. And the more specific the gratitude is, the more meaningful and the more connected. So for example, if I said to my husband, I'm so grateful that you're such a wonderful person. Like, that's nice. That's nice. But if I say, I'm so grateful for the way you smiled last night when I just needed some positive energy, and the way you looked at me really warmed my heart. Like, that's gonna create much more connection, and he'll feel more appreciated than the general one. So the key with, okay, so I'm actually giving a few different things to do each day. So curiosity, and also specific gratitude related to who your partner is and your relationship. Now, if you're already feeling pretty connected and in tune with your partner, then I would say a really important daily practice or daily thing to do is to connect sensually. And that can be a hug, it can be a kiss, it can be really any kind of moment where you're really together. There's also data that I think it's 30 seconds. I don't actually remember for sure how long, but if you hug for 30 seconds, it gets the oxytocin going. So I encourage couples to include in their repertoire to do a full-on hug, which isn't on the way to something sexier. Like, it's not about, whatever, but to just be connected with one another in the present moment, in an embrace. It only takes 30 seconds. You'll both get some oxytocin flowing, and it allows connection, especially in these stressful times when it's really nice to have ways to connect that don't include a lot of words. It's much more efficient to do that. So everything, even though we haven't really talked about sensuality in an explicit way in this conversation, literally everything points in that direction, because if we prioritize our relationship, that's going to open up the path to sensuality, deepening connection. Having fun together naturally leads to more affection and a little more erotic energy flowing, and making a point of connecting with emotional intimacy and physically every day also leads to sensuality. And sometimes if there's disconnection in the bedroom or not a lot of intimate time, it can feel like there's a lot of inertia to overcome to get those juices going again. And what's surprising and wonderful is if you come at it kind of through the back door, through asking questions and just having a warm embrace, that kind of lubricates the way to being able to open up sexually in a way that is much easier than if you're just like, okay, we have to find our way to reconnect in that department right now.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for giving our watchers all of these tools and resources. There's so much information here, and I'm even excited to take some of this and make my master list today. So thank you so much for your time. And everyone, pick up Dr. Alexandra Stockwell's book, Uncompromising Intimacy. And I have that book, and I read it like in one night. It was amazing. So thank you so much again for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.